We've just, to remind a few people of certain things, we are live streaming, so good morning to those at home. Welcome to those in the gallery and councillors and staff, and we welcome two youth councillors, Lily and Samantha. We've got apologies from Her Worship the Mayor. Would someone like to move that apology be accepted? Thank you, Mr Skinner. Councillor Noonan. Confirmation of order of business, it will be as per the agenda. Oh.
Move in second.
Oh, sorry, move in second. So all those in favour? Thank you. Interests, are there any updates to the interest register from anybody? No, thank you. And no conflicts in any of the agenda items? Right. We have a public forum this morning, and I'd like to invite Rodney Lang and Heather Agnew from New Zealand Post, if you'd like to come up to the table there, please, and we'll do your presentation. Just commence when you're ready.
Thank you.
Okay, hey, thank you very much. I'm Rodney Lang. I'm the area manager for Nelson and Tasman, working for New Zealand Post, and Heather Agnew, she's our implementation specialist for our rollout of our electric vehicles. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Basically, it's as the slide says, I want to present to you our New Zealand Post application for the use of our PACs, the electric vehicles on the footpath. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read some of the information that we sent out prior to this meeting, because I'm not going to go through it all. I've just got 4 slides. I'm going to keep it pretty high level because I think it's really important that everyone has an opportunity to ask us some questions, because I'll give you a background, but I think it's really important that you get to ask us. So just if I go.
Yeah,
thank
I'll
you.
drive it for you.
Wonderful assistant.
Yeah.
The first slide, I guess it lays out our challenge. New Zealand Post is a state-owned enterprise, and of course we have a deed of understanding with the New Zealand government to provide a profitable and efficient postal service. We have a large amount of elderly people, particularly that still rely on our postal service, for communicating, and it's an important part of the community for us offering that mail and parcel delivery. However, we are experiencing, or New Zealand Post is experiencing, a huge amount of decline in volume, particularly in around 30 million articles per annum, which is a huge amount to try and absorb when that, particularly when that relates to revenue off your bottom line. So I guess for us to maintain our postal service and to be a profitable a business, we need to change. So we need to change our model. So we also want to retain full-time jobs for our posties, and to do that we need to change, and this model is one way that we can do that. And for us, it's no longer profitable for us, for New Zealand Post, to have a postie and a courier going up the same residential road. It's not sustainable. So our proposal was that we really do need these electric vehicles to be able to go up the footpath, on the footpaths, and deliver both mail and parcels. So instead of having a van going up there and a postie on a bike, we would have proposing that we use an electric vehicle. So that's this gives you the why we need to change, and the model that we're looking to, or just one among many models that we're looking to use to remain in a viable postal service. So the next slide here is just around our journey. For our journey for electric vehicles and this model that we're wanting to move forward with. So It's been extensive trials undertaken throughout New Zealand by us for the last 3-year period. So this hasn't been just a knee-jerk reaction. Wow, we're losing revenue. What can we just quickly do to try and peg that back? So we have done extensive trials and with the PAXs. So we've purchased PAXs from they're purchased and used in Norway, and we have them registered in New Zealand as well and we've got a number of exemptions through the NZTA. So we've had a full end-to-end pilot implementation in New Plymouth. So in June 2015. So we have been operating the PAXs operating on the footpaths in the community of New Plymouth since June 2015. So we've had a number of third-party experts engaged to provide recommendations on the vehicles, so covering the use on the footpath, traffic flow, impacts and ergonomic assessments as well. So we have called on experts to help us out to make sure that we do this right. So New Zealand Post is committed to ensuring that the PAXter vehicles provide a safe and healthy work environment for our employees, our customers and the members of the public. Currently we've got 330 PAXter vehicles currently operating across New Zealand. So we've had approval received from 74% of councils, covering 80% of New Zealand's population. So I guess it just demonstrates our journey that it's been a reasonably long journey, but it's been thoroughly thought out and okay, and this one actually I might get Heather to talk about, because Heather's closer to the PAXs than what I am, but this just gives you an insight into our PAXs and some of particularly the amount of money that we've spent adding some additional safety and wellbeing features.
Yep. Yeah. So as Rodney said, we've got about 430 vehicles in the country now, of which we've got 330 in operation. So we still have 100 sitting in the warehouse to be deployed across the other 25% of the councils. So the vehicles are, they're like Postman Pat, I think they get referred to, and tuk-tuks. They are about 1.2 metres wide and about 2.1 long. So they are reasonably big on the footpath. They weigh 400 kilos. They can carry up to 300 kilos additional weight, but that is including the driver as well. Generally, they will never ever get to that. We would never ever carry that amount of weight because we max it out with space before we do that. They can go 45 kilometres on the road and up to 20 kilometres on the footpath, so that's what's been approved by NZTA. And they have a range of between 90 to 100 kilometres from one charge, and generally that works to about 10 hours a day. We have, so on the right hand side you can see, it's a little bit hard to see on that slide, but we've spent $1.3 million on improving the vehicles since we first purchased them from Norway. And probably the ones that we'll point out is the camera, so there's which has actually been in the media recently. So we've got a forward-facing camera that records everything when the vehicle's in operation. We're putting in a reversing camera. We're just waiting for them to arrive in the country. We have also put in a thing called an accelerometer, which has when the brakes, they've got regenerative braking, so when that's applied, the brake lights actually come on. So in normal terms, if you take your foot off an accelerator in a car, your brakes don't come on until you actually apply a brake, but with these vehicles they do. So as soon as they take their hand off the throttle, the brake light will come on. And I think all the rest of the improvements we've made have been more for the use of the vehicle for the delivery agents. Cool.
Okay, so well, I guess just before I talk about the PAXter training, there are clearly some exclusion zones that where pedestrians and PAXters don't mix. So we've certainly assessed and would continue to assess, providing we got approval, of areas where it would be unsuitable to use a Paxter. So, examples will be obviously in the CBD area, around hospitals, around schools, around homes, and so we would work along those, and some footpaths would not be suitable. I guess our proposal was to put forward that we use 7 Paxters in Nelson and 3 in Richmond. I guess you are very well aware that we no longer deliver mail 6 days a week, so we deliver it 3 days a week. So if you think about 7 Paxters on the street, they would only be going up, that street three times a week. So it's not like the 7 are out there going up every street every day. So if I lived in Halifax Street, for example, which I used to, if I saw it, a Paxter I'd see a Paxter 3 days a week potentially. So talking about the Paxter training, so I guess one clear thing is that we're not a cowboy operation. We're not I know it sounds, New Zealand Post is a well-respected and trusted, state-owned enterprise. We're great at what we do. We have great people working for us, and we have great training processes. So we've had, have spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and have got a lot of advice about how we can best train our Paxter drivers. So the driving of the Paxter requires a combination of 11 online modules and a practical assessments, plus regular follow-up and monitoring. So our delivery agents are trained on the importance of the safety and courtesy driving behaviour on both the road and the footpath. The Paxter vehicles will give way to all pedestrians, other users of the footpath, by exiting the footpath. Full day off practical training is undertaken with a qualified NZQA trainer, and all delivery agents undergo a competency assessment approximately 6 to 8 weeks after their initial training to ensure they maintain a safe driving behaviours. So I guess that just a touch of what the effort that we've put in to make sure, because we are very conscious there are concerns around safety on the footpath, and I guess what we're saying is we pride ourselves in our ability to make sure we have full training, and it's not just a matter of training. It's also we have a culture within Post where from a safety perspective there's ongoing reporting of incidents and near misses and accidents. So with that culture is clearly within the current environment with our posties particularly, because now even a postie on a footpath is still, there's lots of incidents where cars backing out driveways and all sorts of things that cause injury. So that's something to note. Otherwise, really I guess it was really around questions. So hopefully that's just giving a brief insight, and based on the information that we handed out prior to the meeting, we're really interested in any questions you may have at all.
Thank you very much. We have questions. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Rodney and Heather. That was very clear, an excellent presentation. I'm conscious that all footpaths are not equal, and I'm wondering if you've done an assessment of our footpaths, and in particular what would concern me is the angle, particularly in your tipping or non-tipping ability, and that wasn't really covered. So if you've got a commentary on that, it'd be really helpful.
Me? Okay. Just looking to see your answer. So an assessment is undertaken on every footpath, so Rodney's team has done that. I think the best way to summarise what you're saying is, I think if you've got a concern about a footpath, we probably would as well. As Rodney said, we take the safety of our staff really, we don't want them to be harmed. So if there's a footpath that's on an angle that wouldn't be suitable for the Paxter, we would get them to deliver it from the road. Yeah. So, and where the footpath's too narrow, if it was going to go onto the grass, it wouldn't be going on the footpath either. Because what we don't want is a whole lot of customer complaints that we're digging up people's grass with the vehicles. So, we're going to minimise any of that. And
in relation to the tipping, we did our initial ones, PAXs, we actually had to make some adjustments to widening of the...
No, so that was the other vehicle. So we trialled two. So we could have put a whole lot more stuff into the presentation. So we have actually trialled two vehicles. One's called a Keybus, that's from Switzerland. It's 3 wheels, and that's in use in New Plymouth as well. So when that first came out, we had tipping issues. That was in the media as well. And what we did is we just extended the wheelbase, so just put wider tyres on. So they're in operation now, but we've had nothing in New Plymouth for the 2 years it's been in operation. But the PAXs, they'll be pretty hard to tip. Yeah.
Councillor Matheson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I've got a couple of questions, if it's okay with you. First of all, they're quite wide,
Yes.
and probably would cover the majority of our footpaths, but I'd be right, width-wise.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. A couple of questions. First of all, we're fairly fortunate in Nelson of having quite an extensive cycleway network. Did you consider using the cycleway instead of the footpath, and take into consideration you wouldn't be going to every home?
So with the NZTA, we actually have to follow the road rules. So we're not allowed in the cycleways. So we're, the PAXters can't go down a cycleway to avoid the traffic, and they have actually been ticketed for that in Auckland. So we're not allowed to use that as a delivery.
So they wouldn't give you exemption for that?
No.
Strange.
Yeah.
And I noticed in your presentation that you've had engagement with people like the Blind Foundation and so forth. What sort of reception did you get from those, the deaf and others?
So unfortunately we were supposed to present at the shared footpath, which I believe, the shared, which was last week. So that takes into account a lot of the disability groups.
I'm on that committee.
Yeah, so unfortunately we couldn't get there because of the weather in Wellington.
Okay.
So we I think every group is different, but we're presenting the results to the shared footpath, so we're hearing the views back. I know that the Blind Foundation do have a lot of issues or a lot of concerns about the vehicles, but as I was just talking to Margaret before the meeting, we're more than happy to share all our results with you for incidents that we've had since we've been in operation for the last 2 years, just to show how these vehicles are going already.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions over operation and one over the service. You've said that pedestrians will get the right of way every time.
Mm-hmm.
So how will the PAXs be able to handle the curb? Will they be able to up and down the curb?
They'll go up and down the driveway. So if they need to, they will reverse so they can exit out a driveway. So that's how they're trained. Either that, or they'll pull into a driveway to allow the pedestrian through.
So they can't mount and dismount over curbs?
No, it wouldn't be good for the vehicles nor good for the curb.
Right.
So we would use the driveways, which it's designed for, like the cars.
And how will they handle the hills in Nelson?
Easy.
Easy?
Yeah.
Right.
We had them up Baldwin Street in Dunedin.
I've got one in Dunedin now. We're not going into Baldwin Street. Yeah.
So it might be an exemption.
Yeah.
I know about Baldwin Street. I delivered newspapers on Baldwin Street years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty steep. Yeah.
Recently there's been a problem with cameras and staff being recorded by their sound. Have you overcome that problem?
So all cameras have been turned off. All the audio on the cameras have been turned off, so they're still recording
Just
visual.
side visual.
Yeah. So that's with the Privacy Commissioner, and we haven't had a ruling back on that yet.
Okay. And finally then, about the service. My nest is empty and my fledglings have all flown to Wellington and set up their own nests. So that means there's an awful lot of parcels going backwards and forwards. And I've got to be honest with you and tell you, the service from Career Post and your service has not been acceptable. Things have been lost and things are never delivered. They always get a note, go to the post office to collect it. So do you think this service will entice people like me back to New Zealand Post, will you be able to have will the posties, having not only the normal mail to deliver, but the parcels, will they have time to run up my drive, across my lawn to my front door, and knock on my door and tell me, here's a parcel for you, or will they not?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, like I said, we are in a changing business. We're particularly in a huge growth in parcels, and so the Paxter project is just one of those. So looking at our service performance that we have, so currently with our mail, we're not overly happy with the results of late that we're getting around mail delivery. So there's a lot of work going along those, particularly around automation. As for our parcel delivery, currently our posties don't deliver track items, but our couriers do. So once again, we're just struggling with growth. We're trying to recruit, and you see in the paper, we're trying to recruit more couriers as well. So we are going through we're sort of bursting at the seams with particularly international inbound. So we are aware of our service has suffered particularly since Christmas, and so we've put a lot of things in place to actually address that.
So just to make sure I'm clear on it, you're still going to have a courier service then?
Still going to have a courier service, within the business areas as well. Yeah.
And finally,
and a courier service also.
Finally, when the postie has a parcel to take up to my door, how secure is the mail going to be that's left sitting down on the Paxter?
So the doors, everything's locked. So we've got locks on all the areas where the product is.
Right.
Yeah. So, but just you will still see courier vans in the residential areas because, if you think about the one-day sales when they do dog kennels, well, we can't carry them in the Paxter vehicle, so they'll still have to be carried by but about 80% of the little stuff would go into the Paxter vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Laurie?
Thanks, Chairman. Bunch of questions from me. One, will the introduction of the Paxters herald job losses?
No.
Right. How is that? Because I see people riding bikes and vans, and this will, I guess, take over some of that work.
So it won't. One is the growth that Rodney talked about, but also what's happening is with the introduction of the vehicles, we're actually changing the employee model. So we're actually putting them onto a 4-day roster instead of them working 6 days now. So at the moment they work 6 days and about 6 hours a day. So instead now they'll work 4 days and 10 hours a day. So it's actually giving the postie a bit of a work-life balance, and they're only doing 4 days.
So it means less work for posties?
No, because they're still doing exactly the same hours.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Councillor Laurie, I think this is not part of this discussion at the moment.
Okay, my next question is, has anyone ever been hurt or killed by a Paxter?
No. Yes, they have been hurt, but not killed.
Was that in New Zealand?
Yes.
Oh yeah, can you tell us about that?
So I will provide all the incident results to Margaret, which we're more than happy to share. So we're giving that to Tasman and hopefully get it through to them by Tuesday. But basically, I think there's been, and this is off the top of my head, so please don't if it comes out a little bit different, but I think there's been 8 incidents over the last 2 years involving cars, where cars have pulled in front of the Paxters and they've either crashed into them or otherwise Paxters have gone up the back of cars. We have had, I think there has been 3 of the 8 where it has resulted in staff having to have time off because they have injured themselves. We have had 1 person hit in the processing site where they walked behind as a Paxter was reversing out. They got hit. So I think, but honestly, we'll share all the results with you. Like, we're not trying to hide it.
Sure.
But yeah, sorry, just off the top of my head, I haven't got them.
Okay, next question. If online shopping increases, is it safe to assume that we'll see Paxters zipping up and down our footpaths more often? No. You may get an increase of maybe 1 or 2 Paxters here, if there's such a growth that we have to make the rounds a little bit smaller because we've got more volume. Oh, yeah.
But you wouldn't be looking at that in the short term. Like we've designed it now as based on the volumes and a little bit of growth.
Okay, my last question through the chair is, in Nelson, some people get really upset
at simply the sight of children riding bicycles on the footpath. What sort of public reaction have you had to Paxton's and other centres?
Mixture. Majority of it is positive. But we have had, we'll be honest, we have had a little bit of backlash in certain areas. A lot actually in South Auckland. So another thing that we're just doing for Tasman District Council is getting a survey, a snapshot survey done of our staff, which I'll provide the results of, because they're the ones who are dealing day to day with the customers. A lot of the time, unfortunately, they don't ring up the customer service centre, so we're not getting the feedback from the customer. This is just from the delivery agent. So I think if you talk to any of the councils who have had this in operation, they get no feedback about the Paxton vehicles. And I was saying to Margaret that it would be good to contact Hamilton because Margaret knows Robin, and also they were quite concerned, especially around the disability groups. So we've done a lot of work with them, and we had our first meeting with them last week, and they're more than happy with how it's going.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Skinner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I own a vehicle not much bigger than those dimensional smart car, best vehicle I've ever owned, both for short runs and long runs. Great presentation, because I've always had a few concerns when I first seen it, but this, I love how you've gone for an extensive testing period. Today, so you presented, what are you actually asking from us? So what's the outcome you're wanting or requesting?
Well, we would like approval to use the vehicles on the footpath, but from talking with Margaret, what will happen is that Margaret's going to write a report. No, I don't actually know the process. We're not too sure. We want approval to put the Paxton vehicles on the footpath. So I guess it's up to you, the process that we have to go through now to get that.
And you'd be suggesting a staging, as you've mentioned?
So we wouldn't be implementing until early next year now, because we close off any changes to our operation from the end of September. So basically we've missed the window for 2017. So we would be looking at implementing them in Nelson for 2018.
Okay, and you've had some good feedback from, like example, police investigator, etc., and other services, transport department, etc. From a financial view, has that been a win for you using those? If we're allowing this, is it still something that needs to be proven to be successful as a model for you guys?
It's definitely would be saving us money, yes. Okay. Yeah, because otherwise as a company we wouldn't do it, and we've got an obligation to make money, so we have to do something different. I guess the big thing to remember is that with the declining mail volumes, we've basically got the posties to a point where we can't make them do any more work. Like some of the walking posties in Wellington are doing 21 k's a day. So they're walking 21 k's and carrying 12 kilos. We
Half
can't.
marathon.
Yeah, I live in Wellington, so we can't physically ask them to do anything more. And the posties are cycling up to 40 k's a day. So they're at the end of their what we can get them to do anymore.
Safely.
Yeah. Right. So we have to do something different.
Okay, so we're now at a stage where we're starting to run out of time. There was a questioner over here. Councillor Ackland.
Sorry, Councillor. Through the chair, we had Paul first.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Dahlberg first.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. The question I had was I see you got a green award for your electric. The concern would be the lack of noise for pedestrians.
Yeah.
Have you solved that? I'm thinking more of accidents.
It's a good question around do we make the vehicles audible. We discussed that with NZTA and it was agreed that we wouldn't. The staff are trained that they do not rush up behind pedestrians, or they do not toot the horn, so they don't give people frights. Basically they train that if there's a pedestrian on the footpath they have to come off.
Okay. So you've already considered that. So my second question then would be we discussed the accidents of your packages. What's the ratio between your normal cycling type postie, I'm assuming they had accidents as well, versus your these mobile electric vehicles?
I'll give those to Margaret because that's all part of the presentation. So we've just presented it to the union, so I'm just waiting for it to come to me and then we'll give it to Margaret, and it does compare the posties on bikes versus the Paxters.
Okay.
But I do know that it's a reduction, which is good for us.
So it's less accidents compared to the
Yeah.
cyclists. That's what I would have thought too.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
They're safer in these vehicles. They're more protected from the weather and from being hit.
And of course, there's not that fatigue of situation where posties work, you know, like Heather said, you know, biking 40 Ks, getting fatigued. And then,
Thank you. Just a quick question from Councillor
Just a
Adler.
very quick question, thank you, Mr Chair, is, at some time in the future, there's going to be a request for a decision from council to give permission to use local
Yes.
roads.
No, footpaths.
Footpaths, rather.
Yeah.
Will you come back at that time, or are we going to just have an internal staff report, do you know? Because it may be that we have questions, I think. I know I may have some other questions more
we're
specific.
certainly available
yeah.
at any time when, if required. Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, we're more than happy to come and talk, and we're more than happy to give you whatever information you require.
I guess the overarching one, and it may lead into a bigger conversation, the thing I'm interested in is, if, for instance, our region said, no, we didn't want that, because of a particular protection of our footpaths locally, what does that do to New Zealand Post?
So we would have to have a look at the model, the delivery model in Nelson. So you would still get your product delivered, but we would have to look at how we do that and the jobs that go with that.
So days and times, or
No, it would be more around the staffing, I would imagine. Yeah, because we're really trying to sustain full-time jobs for these people as well.
yeah, so that's what I led into say about more than likely move towards a part-time workforce than a full-time workforce, because we can't hit you.
okay, thanks.
Thank you. And finally, from Youth Councillor Lilly.
I'm just wondering, would this provide potentially more jobs for young people, or would they need kind of a special licence or qualification to be hired?
Definitely more jobs for young people. So all you need to drive the vehicle is a normal driver's licence and a good attitude, really. Yeah. Pass the employment check and don't have a criminal record.
And it's a good point, because we have recruited quite a number of younger people as a result, because some of our older, longer serving posties have, they love that lifestyle, they love that biking, and now, we're taking that away from them, biking in the sunshine and keeping fit and so forth. So suddenly a lot of them have decided they want to, change.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. As you can see from the questioning, we've gone well over time, but there's a genuine
sorry
interest
about
in
that.
knowing what you're up to. And so from that point of view, we do thank you both. So as a result of this, I'd now like to move that we ask for an officer report to come back to this committee, and we ask that the officer who's been present she's heard where the interest lies and the information that you've offered to give us, so that would be really great. So do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. So we now go to the next item, which is confirmation of minutes, which is on pages 7 to 11. Are there any alterations or corrections anyone wishes to make? So is there anything we'd like to confirm that those minutes are a true and correct record? Do we have a mover for that? Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Right, we're now moving on to the status report. And that's pages 12 to 14. Is there any items that anyone wants to raise relating to page 13, Waimea Road issues and opportunities? Okay, then we go to page 14, Church Street improvement concept. Councillor Matheson.
Mr Chair, thank you. Can I just ask Mr Levertus how he has got on with his canary lighting?
Through the chair, staff are dealing with the detailed design, and there has been a good dialogue with the businesses in Church Street, and once we finalise that design, we will work with them to figure out a possible contribution from them. But it is progressing well, yes.
Any other discussion on that item? Would someone like to move? It's been moved and seconded that we accept the status report. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
So who seconded it?
Bill, I think it was. Okay, now we come to item 7, which, as the new chairman, I've altered the layout of the chairperson's report, referring to page 15 and 16. This is an effort to make you aware of the work that's going on a continual basis, month to month. I would like to move that my report be received. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dahlberg. And just running down through the various items there, day's track, we've got a milestone there where we've got the opening scheduled for the second. It looks like it's going to be quite a community occasion. We've got the descendants of the original Day family will be there to cut the ribbon, and it's looking like it'll be a worthwhile community occasion. Anzac Park, the pedestrian refuge is now in. It all looks to be working pretty well. It was feared that it might be a bit tight to get that work done, but the engineers have done a good job and it's all looking really good there. Next item is the library, so that's underway down at Tahuna. So that's there. Neil Park sewer station, that's the pump station there. We've learned a lot from the first pumping project at Quarter Park, and so we're benefiting from that. So that one's underway. 3.5, the road maintenance contract, that's all there. The regional landfill, that's coming together. We've had our first meeting and we're gearing up for the second one shortly. So at this particular stage, it's all underway and functioning as intended. 3.8, Mr. Laverdis, do you want to talk about the Civil Contractors Awards at all? Are you aware of that meeting?
So through the chair, yes, I was aware of it. I didn't attend the contractors' dinner, but at those awards, which is the Nelson Marlborough, which is the wider region, there were a number of individual projects, council projects that were put up. They won their individual categories, but the Supreme Award was provided to NELMAC for their landscaping works at the Suita. So that was a good outcome for NELMAC, an excellent outcome for the Suita and for Nelson.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, any other questions from anybody relating to any of those projects? Councillor Matheson?
Yes, I just wanted to talk about Day's Track for a couple of minutes. I think that if you have an opportunity, go and have a look at it. It's ready to be opened. It's huge. It's very impressive. And accidentally, the chairman and myself went and paid a visit the other night, unbeknown to each other. He was at the top and I was down the bottom. But we met with, you bumped into some locals, I bumped into some locals, and I tell you what, the council staff's reputation with regard to that Day's Track is A+. And they were not backward in telling us both that how impressed they were with the communication and contact that the staff here have had with the locals. They were very complimentary, and Fulton Hogan made a breakfast for them one morning just for all the residents to keep them happy as well. But if you get a minute, go and have a look at it. It's quite a feat. It's quite impressive, I have to say.
And further to that, part way up, if you go up from the Moncrief corner, about 50-60 metres up, there's a concrete sofa has been erected. It hasn't been unveiled yet. I've seen some photos of what it's going to look like. These photos were taken before the mosaics were grouted, and it's absolutely fantastic. So that's all going to be unveiled on the Saturday as well. Councillor Dalberg.
Yep. Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, great report. See, my question would be around the Anzac Park. Nice work around there. How's that leading now onto the Great Tate Trail finishing component from Anzac Park through to the eyesight? How are we going there?
So through the chair, that is a project that we've got money this financial year to progress how we get, and I think the link is from Anzac to, there is a link, so we've put the pedestrian crossing in, the ped crossing that gives us across Rutherford to the CBD. We're also working on the link between Anzac to the Mai Tai pathway. So that work is a piece of work this financial year.
Councillor Laurie.
Thanks. I am thrilled to see what's happening in Anzac Park, and I'm sure cyclists will greatly appreciate it. It's a much improved cycle link, and good stuff. Just one question about the launch of the day's track. 2nd of September, I'm not aware of us receiving invitations to that event, and I'm a little bit concerned that there seems to be some things going on in council that we don't all hear about, and I think that's the sort of thing that a lot of us would want to be at. I certainly have had some input into that project in the last term, and I'll definitely be there. But I also know there's an event on the 3rd of September, I understand, a meeting about issues in North Nelson at the Waka Puaka Community Hall. I haven't been told about that by council. I've been told about that by locals. So I just want to make the point that we are all interested in those sorts of events, and I think we all need to be told about them.
Okay, I can confirm that as late as yesterday we were finalising details who's able to attend the day's track opening.
Sorry, Mr Chairman.
Yeah. As late as yesterday we were confirming the details as to who would be attending officially from the Day family descendants.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And probably today invitations will be going out officially in that regard, and then I'd like to think that a general invite goes to councillors as a matter of course.
Great.
For that one. I can't comment on the other, sorry.
Yeah. I always think it's better to err on the side of inviting everyone to anything involving the city, just, for the record.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And one final item, that there was a meeting held last night regarding driverless vehicles, and Mr Levertis will give a quick report on that.
Thank you. Through the chair. So this is just a brief discussion. I was invited to be part of a panel discussion hosted by the IT professionals at NIMIT last night. I was on a panel with PIX and a representative from the insurance industry and another consultant who is very in favour of smart cities. It has been taped. And I won't go through everything, but it was a panel discussion. It has been taped, and once that is available, we will make sure that is available to all councillors that you can see. The comments from Nelson in terms of driverless cars, that we know that they're coming, and they're probably coming sooner than we think, and that we are open to be part of any trial. But it was an interesting discussion, ranging from insurance, ranging from liability, ranging from security, ranging from what the cars can do, what they can't, what they cannot do, infrastructure, funding. So a good evening, actually.
Thank you, Mr Levertis. So we now move to item...
You need to receive it.
Oh, sorry, okay, yep. Would someone like to move that we receive the... it's been moved and... Sorry. Yep, okay. I'd like to put that then. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right. We now move to item 8. I'd like to invite the relevant staff to the table for the water, wastewater and stormwater.
So through the chair, Mr Phil Ruffle will be presenting this report.
Thank you, Mr Ruffle. Are there any alterations or to any of the papers that we have received for the 3 waters there?
Mr Chair, no. No, the 3 executive summaries remain as they are really right through to the end of the LTP process now.
Right, thank you. Would you like to make some comment on any particular one? We all have those various reports on hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think that we've workshopped pretty much all of the issues, if not all of the issues. I'm more than happy, of course, to respond to any queries that councillors might have about those executive summaries, but they just form the basis for the long-term plan discussion that will continue from now on through to the end of May next year.
All right, thank you. I know that a tremendous amount of work has gone on when staff have been unwell as well. They've managed to get it all through, so we greatly appreciate that. Do anyone have any questions? Councillor Noonan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I hope it fits in this particular meeting, but when I was looking through the executive summary, I couldn't actually find it, but I've just got a caution regarding any notices on limbs regarding floods, and I'm just wondering if the officer could actually explain where that might be. If it's not today, then where we might be with that, because the caution is putting a note on a limb based on assumptions, not fact.
Thank you. Would you care to comment on that?
Just briefly, Mr. Chair, yes, councillors are no doubt aware that through the development of the Nelson Plan that we have an extensive hazard section of that, and we have actually been working through those particular issues with our legal advisors in terms of what documentation goes on land information memorandums and what doesn't. At the moment there is an interim land limb statement on all of the properties that our flood models have identified may be at risk. And that's just to provide the opportunity for all of those property owners to actually feed back. And we have held quite a number of public meetings that some councillors have been to, just seeking that sort of feedback. So we're in that process now of coordinating all that feedback, working with our modellers to see whether any changes need to be made to the model to represent or reflect some of those inputs from the community, and then from that, through that, once again, through that development of the hazard section of the Nelson Plan, proposed Nelson Plan, we'll end up with a much tidier process in terms of land information memorandum statements. I really, there's not much more I can add without really going back through the whole process.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffle, for that. So just a clarification really of the information that's been received from the community, will that be responded to in a formal way?
Mr. Chair, I'm slightly out of my depth, I have to say, in that. I understand that we have accumulated the information that is on spreadsheets. We are working it through. I understand that we will be responding to people individually, but I don't have the exact detailed knowledge about who or when or where.
No, Mr. Chair, I think that people are expecting a response from personal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm one of those affected personally, and my understanding is that we're going to be responded to individually, those of us that made submissions. So I think there is another level of activity yet to come.
So, through the Chair, that's my understanding, correct, absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any other questions relating to these three separate asset management plans?
A bit marginal just at the moment,
Yep.
Sorry.
Councillor Barker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Phil. There's a budget in 2022-23 to cover aeration, to mix the waters, the manganese and the iron, which of course some people take as supplements, which is ironic, but anyway, how much is the 2022-23 budget for that aeration on the table on page 56?
Mr. Chair, I put a $2 million construction figure in through there, so it's spread over about a 3-year period as well, that particular project, where we'll do some more in-depth investigation just to actually confirm what's likely to be the most appropriate form of aeration through there, and then a year to seek any consents that we need, and then a $2 million construction figure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And one other question. The actual plans are available for the public and for us to view somewhere?
Madam,
Executive summary?
Mr Chair, sorry, there's the full asset management plans are still draft asset management plans and they're still being worked on. What Council have got access to at the moment is the executive summaries, which have brought together all of the dollars, the levels of service and the key issues that we all workshopped. Some of the asset management plans behind the scenes still need to have tables updated. There's really quite a lot that does happen over a 3-year period between one set and the other, and we need to update all of those. So the draft, as such as they are available to councillors in the councillors' lounge, and we'll just be continually updating those with the information to support these executive summaries over the next few months.
So, Mr Chairman, we can expect the approval of the plans themselves in due course?
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Mr Chair. As a totally separate exercise, all of the complete asset management plans will come to Council as a separate exercise for adoption.
Thank you. And I would like to state that don't be frightened for those that are genuinely interested. The ring binders are out there and they're only that thick. So just bear that in mind. Councillor Darby.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and Phil, great reports, a lot of detail. I just had one question on page 37. It says the infrastructure leakage index for Nelson, and it mentions there about 3.3 to 3.7. Is that a percentage or is that actually some sort of physical size?
Mr Chair, it's not a percentage. It's actually an amalgamation of a range of different criteria in that unaccounted for water exercise. So just we've probably talked through this quite a bit in the past, but in terms of our issues we have with our water supply, we'd prefer to use the words non-revenue and unaccounted for water. Since it's a reflection of the fact that some of the water that we just can't account for is actually lost through pure leaks. Some is lost through contractors just cracking open our hydrants. Some is lost when our pipes burst and fail. Some is lost from people simply taking water without telling us. So what we're trying to get with that infrastructure leakage index is just a non-dimensional assessment that we can show a range of areas, their failures, what we think are our pure leaks in a non-dimensional fashion. And we can just apply that each year. So every time we do something, we seek to reduce that infrastructure leakage index. I suspect there are many ways we can actually cut the cake in this sort of area, and some people will prefer to know what our pure losses are. Some will prefer to know what our pure non-revenue water is, and the infrastructure leakage is just a more international approach to all of those into a single index.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you very much. I was trying to get on the record really, because there might be people watching or on here. So on that scale then, 0 to 6, what's the top? That's what I struggle with. What's the top of the scale? Is it 100 or 10 or how do I?
0 would be really good. If you had an infrastructure leakage index of 0, then there is no unaccounted for water. You know exactly where everything is and what's going on. So if we think that the higher our infrastructure leakage index is, perhaps not the best for us. We want the lowest possible leakage index.
So again, so through you, so 100's like really bad. We haven't got any water at all.
Oh no, I think well,
What's the top?
that's certainly the top in terms of the leakage, and I think practically you wouldn't have an infrastructure leakage index of those extreme areas. That's why most of those, if we see on our Nelson's infrastructure index leakage, they're around the 3s and the 4s. And
okay, and I can see the improvement, which is really what we're trying to track. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Ruffle? Councillor Matheson?
It's just a follow-up from our last meeting. Phil, you were going to try and get some TV footage of the bottom of the dam.
Mr. Chair, yes indeed. Cawthron Institute have got some really good CCTV footage. All I'm trying to do is just find an appropriate forum.
Okay.
I suspect one of the Works and Infrastructure Committee meetings will be a good place to bring Cawthron in. And I've asked them whether they'd be available to do that, and they're happy as. In fact, it would be a good discussion to have with Cawthron.
Yeah, and I think your timing's about right too. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Phil, you'll be aware that I look at this one quite regularly. I want to know, has NEVA given you any update on their predictions for sea level rise? I asked this question in the knowledge that this week Port Nelson Limited said they still have not recorded any sea level rise at Nelson. Are we still confident that the 1 metre is going to come by the year 2100? Is our planning still based on that?
Mr. Chair, yes, some of those I can answer. Yes, our planning is still based on that. What Council is currently running is with the advice from the Ministry for the Environment, who are still really led by the international panel of experts that still say that we can anticipate those levels of sea level rise. I have asked, we're still waiting for NEWA to formally present their update to the high intensity rainfall distribution data for Nelson area, which is really very critical for us. It's really what we use as the basis. That. In terms of sea level rise, I have asked one of our consultants at Tonkin and Taylor to actually do some assessment for us on the various sea level rise around the country, just to give, at some stage we'll present that to Works and Infrastructure as a separate update.
Thank you. No further questions? Oh, Councillor McGurk.
Thanks for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. I was just looking at tables about the water standards, or the drinking water standards. I'm just asking the question in light of the inquiry into Hastings. And I know they've got a completely different system. They're artesian and it's a groundwater system. We've got dams and stuff like that. But in terms of the AB standard, I'm just wondering, could you just do a bit of a description of our testing regime and the confidence, would express confidence in our testing regime?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Fundamentally, yes, I have absolute 100% faith in Nelson City's water supply. We test our raw water sources on a very regular basis. One of the things that Nelson does, because we do put chlorine into our water at the back end of the treatment plant, we can plot and check the levels of chlorine that's available throughout our entire network, and we do that continuously. So we check the chlorine on the outlet of the water treatment plant, we treat it at the two, and we also test it on a continuous basis, or monitor it on a continuous basis at the two extreme points in our network, down to Nelson South and out towards the Glen there. So we can tell on a 24-hour-day basis what level of chlorine residual is left in our water for that period of time. We also take regular samples, weekly samples, out of the network at different locations, and we have those tested. So I'm really very, very comfortable with Nelson's testing regime, and the fact that we have a residual chlorine in all our network all the time should be of great comfort to councillors.
Just a follow-up question. Who does the testing? Do we do it ourselves, or do we have a third party?
Mr. Chair, we take the samples and they are tested by a third party though. Cawthron Institute do the testing for E. coli's, and we have been running a separate test for the last 12 months for Giardia and Cryptosporidium, which is tested by health laboratories, last I heard.
Thank you. No further questions? Mr. Ruffle, we greatly appreciate the effort that you've put in and your team. It's critical to the well-being of the city, the works and infrastructure involvement, and the three waters particularly, and we sincerely thank you for the effort that's gone in, and we know that illness has been a problem in the area, and we wish you well that things are coming right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think we've had a really good session relating to questioning. Would someone like to move that we receive the report and that we approve the draft plans as such? So it's been moved, Councillor, seconded by Councillor Skinner. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. now we move to item 9, which is we're going to move into public excluded business. Would someone like to move that we do that? Yep. Yep. We have a mover, Councillor Skinner, and seconded, Councillor Dahlberg. All those in favour? Thank you. Against? Carried. We'd like to thank the youth councillors for your involvement and participation, and we welcome you to attend again, I understand, at some stage.